was watching Qigong Master Robert Pang yesterday, and he's known as the zapping master. And there's videos of him shocking people. Most prominently, the former Prime Minister of Australia. And he teaches a technique called she breathing, which appears to be the same as the Wim Hof breathing, where the emphasis is on holding the breath after exhale. And so this, as we know, this is to activate the vagus nerve. He describes it as a deep body relaxation. But in terms of philosophy in Buddhism, what they're really talking about is the timing between the in and the out breath, and that timing needs to be expanded. In Advaita Vedanta non-dualism, Punjaji talks about how the very first breath that you take when you wake up is this moment of self-awareness, and it's also the very first conscious thought you have. So there's this and once again there's this gap. Punjaji calls it the space between your thoughts. And if you can just listen to the source of your thoughts, between your thoughts, then you'll also achieve this time between your breathing. And so what happened to me is that when I was in first grade, we had a contest who could these group of boys, and we were going to the bathroom down at the end of the school. We had to wash our hands. We started the realized like much later in my meditation that the reason I had wanted contest was because I had suppressed anger, like subconscious anger. I was taking it back and breathing. And so when we hold the breath after exhale, what we're doing is we're activating the Yuan Qi, and so we're converting the Yin Qi to Yang Qi, but since it's actually the space between our breaths, and it's also the space between our thoughts, when you activate the Yang Qi, then there's this, in French they call it the little breath. So like when you have what I talked about in the last video, the bliss that's triggered by the vagus nerve, that empties out your thoughts. So that is what empties out your thoughts. And so in your very first breath upon waking, if you meditate a lot, you'll actually see the light go up from your lower body up to your skull and then out of your eyes. And then of course as modern Western people, we don't realize that when we're awake we have light shooting out of our eyes. And in Taoism they call that the Hun soul, and it's powered by the Yin Qi. So the Yin Qi is in your liver. At night with your eyes are closed, and so that's also what they call the red dragon. And so then when you open your eyes, it goes to the heart and empowers the spirit to go out of your eyes. When it's in the liver at night, it's for your subconscious and your dreaming, so it connects back to the Yang Qi, which is the Yin Shen for dreaming. So that's the deep vagus nerve activation. And so in the West, we call this the negative judgment paradox, or that's the phrase used by math professor Luigi Borzacchini. So the Westerners, we think we're very clever because we supposedly solved, Zeno's paradox with time being infinite. You can always take a half amount of time to get somewhere, and therefore you'll never actually get there. And so Eudoxus developed this idea where you can just use geometric ratios and you don't have to say what the actual number value is of the ratios. You just have to say that the ratios are getting closer to another number. So that's assuming you can already measure the end of time as space. So you're converting time into space. And so we think, oh, that's great, it's worked so far, but as Luigi Borzacchini points out, it's based on a pre-established deep disharmony, because we have in math, it's called incommensurability. It's the logical difference between algebra and geometry, and so we can't really solve those paradoxes ultimately unless we keep using a more advanced technology as the upper limit. So in math we establish a measuring upper limit, and then we try to create the technology that will fit that pre-established mathematical limit. And so the infinity is actually taking us into higher dimensions based on the logarithms or symmetry, and then this creates increased disharmony through the external technology that we project out. So we're transforming time into spatial disharmony. So we're accelerating time on Earth as a enclosed destruction of space by making it a standard